Okay, at least I'm the first one. Hello. Hola, Alba. Okay. Hi, Natasha. How are you
Hey,
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
My internet was not being very good, and I was scared I was going to get frozen and leave you alone with all these people that you don't know.
I hope not. Do you need me to wear headphones or can you hear okay? There's not too much background noise?
No, I can hear very well. That's lovely. Do you
Cool.
have already lovely fall colors? Or do you have a nice fall
Yeah,
down there?
we do. Yeah, we do. Particularly if you go out into the mountains in North Carolina. I mean, I don't think it's like it was where you were around Tufts, but yeah, it's pretty. And it's just starting.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
it's still a lot warmer than England.
Yeah, I mean, although I'm surprised also, it's pretty good. It's getting good.
Good.
So again, thank you so much for doing this. This is so appreciated that you spare 1 hour of your life to speak with all of us. This is obviously being recorded and then we're going to share. I know there's a lot of people that they want to be here and they can, and we will then share to everyone. As always, this is for everyone to ask questions. I have plenty of questions, but if anyone wants to ask any question to Natasha, so just a little bit of introduction, although I know that everyone knows her. So she's a professor, researcher, teacher, and clinician at NC State. And she has this amazing lab of spinal cord injury. And I didn't know, I just looked at the page that you have this huge grant. You were awarded this distinguished gerontology, which I needed to look for. I didn't even know what that was. And you have this huge grant to support your research.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. It happened in 2017. Time flies.
Wow.
But yes, I was very fortunate to be given this distinguished chair, and it does provide a lot of support for me to be able to do things without writing a million grants all the time to try and keep everybody funded and going. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a lot of questions, but I guess that the first kind of pathway and questions that we've been already talking a little bit about when talking with other diplomats, particularly from different countries. Like, what's your story? How did you and when did you decide to move countries and to do a residency in neurology?
Oh, that's a great question. Because I always say to people, you just have to do what you love, right? I never imagined I would end up here. So, going all the way back, I grew up in Yorkshire, very close to James Herriot Land, and I wanted to be James Herriot. Like his books completely inspired me, and I think, like many of my generation, I wanted to work in mixed practice, and I went off to vet school at Cambridge, and rapidly became enamored of surgery, actually, of all things. And in those days, if you wanted to be a specialist, you did it at a university. And if you wanted to stay on at a university, you got a PhD. Yeah. So I will say I went into veterinary medicine and my veterinary degree with absolutely no intention at all to do research. But because of that, I'm like, okay, so I need to do a PhD. And then here's the kind of the dirty secret, if you like. At that time, I was rowing a lot for Cambridge. I was very passionate about rowing. And I really wanted to spend more time rowing and trying to develop my rowing beyond my university rowing career. And I visited a lot of labs and I was trying to make decisions about where to go with my PhD topic. And this one lab, Bill Blakemore's lab, was at the vet school, was a neuroscience lab, actually mostly based in multiple sclerosis at that time. And Dr. Blakemore said to me, oh, I don't mind how much you row if you're in my lab, which was really foolish of him. He didn't know I was going to spend like 2 to 4 hours a day, every day. And so to a certain extent, I made my choice of lab based on that and rapidly found that neurology and neuroscience was a place I was very, very at home in, very, very happy with. So I did my PhD, and it was a combined PhD and surgical training, and kind of came out the end of that knowing that I really wanted to move my research into the clinic. I didn't want to induce disease or injury. I wanted to study wherever I could naturally occurring disease. And also, I really do identify as a clinician. So I knew I wanted to go back into the clinic from that kind of hybrid research and clinical training at that stage. And there weren't that many residencies in England. There was one in London. There were some other kind of opportunities that were not very well organized, but there were several in America. And so with encouragement of my boyfriend at the time, who really wanted to come out to America, I came out to America to do a residency, and then really found myself so happy at North Carolina. I mean, I've looked at other places for sure. I've questioned moving back to England for sure. You know, my heart is back in England, but America has been incredibly kind to me, and I've really loved being here. So, you know, the rest was history. I became a neurologist, and I always, because of my PhD training, wanted to combine my clinical neurology with research.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that I found very different going, well, I've only been in the States for 3 years, but it was a very different approach, that research side, or the way that in the States you can do research in a university, very different to the idea that I had in Europe. And it's true that I had that kind of a mindset before, that if you do research, you do bench research, and, you know, you're in the lab and that kind of, you always think, oh, you know, I want to, do clinical research. Well, I mean, you do a lot of research, which obviously some is bench research, but it's not you that you do it. Well, I don't know, maybe in your case it is you, but you have all this huge team. But then that clinical research, it is much easier, I think, in the States, the organization of the universities, the way that things work, it is a little bit more organized than I would say in Europe, and it's a little bit more feasible, no? With, I don't know what.
Yeah, I suspect so. I mean, my experience is all at NC State, you know. I've been here the whole time, but the aim, the desire, the reason that the vet school's there is to teach veterinary students, to provide excellent care, and to advance knowledge. And so I've been fortunate. I've always had department heads who've done everything they can to support you and to make it possible. I think it's probably easier. There are more funding sources here. I think, you know, not to say I haven't written a gazillion grants that have not got funded, and spent many hours, weekends, nights writing grants to try and keep things funded and moving. But from talking to other people, I still think that there's more funding opportunities here. So that's more possible.
Yeah, I think that what maybe, I don't want to focus too much on this subject, but I think that a lot of people probably listening, coming from other countries, obviously Europe and Latin America, and then obviously from Asia, how you are seen as a vet in the States, it is pretty good, which in other countries is not that good. So there is a part of that, but back to the subject.
That's true. Yeah, it's very, very valued and respected. And that's true.
Yeah. So good point, I think, also, like, that we don't know that we like neurology until we find something that we kind of think we are good at, and we start liking it, and at some point something sparks, and then we feel motivated. When you were making your choices, and it's funny that you said that you went to the States because your boyfriend at that time wanted to go, was the same with me and my husband. My husband wanted to go to the States. When you did the residency, were you thinking like really ahead, where you wanted to go, what you wanted to be, or did things kind of one after the other fall in place?
I would say they fell in place. I would like to pretend I had a very clear life path and plan. I think it was somewhat vague, purely because you don't necessarily know what all the opportunities are. So I knew I wanted to be an academic specialist clinician.
Yeah.
And then I developed a passion for teaching as you go through that. And I developed a passion for the research as you go through it. So I would say the pieces gradually fit together. I definitely, at an early stage, looked at, well, I guess the initial thing was I wanted to be a specialist and I wanted to be in a university setting. Early on, I knew that. Coming out of vet school, I knew that. Although I spent some time in general practice and I loved it, but I knew I wanted to do that. And so I did the PhD because that's what you had to do then. You know, I'm not sure I would have done otherwise. But thinking out beyond that and where that career would be and what it would look like, no, I can't pretend that I.
And did you know why you wanted to, why you had so clear that you want to be in university?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think a part of it was that I wanted to be in a situation where you could keep pushing the boundaries. I think that was part of it. And the time I spent in general practice, let's just say I loved it and I did not get bored. But that seeing all of these different diseases and disorders and situations where clearly things were going to advance, I wanted to be a part of that. I would say that. Yeah. But otherwise, I don't really know. I've never thought about that.
No, but I think that is a very good point, because it's true that, and I think that that's a very good point also for, again, maybe universities in the States where you really think that there is that wanting of like doing something different and advancing. And obviously everyone is different and there are different departments in universities, but I had very clear view, and this is something very basic, but I really saw when I was at Tufts the difference about a team that grows together, and a team which is a group of people. And that,
it's true. It's true. The other thing that I have really just reveled in here and enjoyed here is that general feeling that people are looking to support you and looking to enjoy you doing well. You know, that's, you step into that and there's a real joy in that. And it does let you really grow. It really does. Gives you confidence.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people probably that they're going to be listening, because I know that particularly if you're in a country where there is not established or well-established specialty, and then you have all these people that they say, oh yeah, I know more than you, or I know more than you. And then I speak with a lot of friends that they're trying to, to advance their knowledge in neurology. They go to a lot of courses, to a lot of meetings. They do things by the book. They do things well. They try to advance. And then there is a lot of competition. And they ask me a lot of times, how do you deal with, you have someone that tells you that whatever you do is wrong, like all that competition that is true. It doesn't happen that much in the States. Well, depends on the level where you're working, but
there is a crazy animal running around. What on earth is it? I am out. Oh my goodness, there's some squirrels going crazy. I'm sorry, I was like, am I about to be attacked by something? The squirrel just going crazy, chasing each other.
So, did you, I obviously, if I ask you personal questions that you don't want to answer, whatever you tell me.
Yeah, sure.
I guess then I will need to interpret your British politeness to say, don't ask me that. So you have a family?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I have a daughter, a glorious daughter who I'm letting watch TV at this moment, so I'm not interrupted.
So were you a young mom, or were you a little bit like after you did quite a lot of things that you were a mom?
Oh, after I did a lot. And it's really interesting. I watch people starting early in their career, women starting early in their career and starting a family right at that point as well. And I'm like, yeah, that's a hard road. I mean, I started a family after I had tenure and felt safe and secure. Yeah, so later on, but not really by design again. One of those things.
Yeah. I was not going to ask that but that was going to be at least my realization. The same. I personally always wanted to have kids, and it just the way that things happen was differently. But then you wonder, like, did you think much about, like, did you think a lot about it, or?
So I never thought that I have to put off kids for my career. I always thought of it as, you know, like if you want to have children, you have children at that time. There's never a good time, right?
Yeah.
So it's just the way that it turned out. But yeah, I think that is hard I see a lot of people, you know, going through putting off, planning around, and that can get tricky. Yeah.
And have you ever felt, or were you thinking before having kids, were you thinking that having kids will interfere in your career?
I mean, it would obviously change what I would do day to day, for sure. I'm not sure that I ever thought it would interfere as in block in any way.
Yeah, you thought that you would keep doing whatever you wanted to do.
Yeah, and it might evolve, and change, but that would all just be part of the complexity of life.
And then you just find the solution. Have you changed your mind a little bit after having kids and then going through it? Did you think that it seemed easier, or it was easier than you expected?
Oh, just different, right? So, so I think that there were two things I was not prepared for, and they definitely change how you are as your work person. So the first thing was just how much fun it is to have a child. How much fun it is, like just day to day. My daughter's a great companion. She's really fun. I've really just enjoyed that so much. The second thing, though, is that I didn't understand how much my brain would change. Like pregnancy and everything, the hormones, everything changes your brain. But then also there's a chunk of your brain that is always concentrated on the family. So, you know, I do feel that, yeah, like that laser attention and focus on what I was doing in my career. No, I mean, that can't be, because a chunk of the brain is now directed somewhere else. That's for sure. For sure. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it changes things. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel any sense of like guilt when you didn't have kids because of your career, or when you had kids because you are using half of your brain for your family?
So I would say that, and maybe this is also true if you're not working, but when you're a parent, I'm a worrier. I'm always worrying that I'm not doing as good a job as I should be. And for your child, I mean, that's really important. And so that's constantly there. At the same token, like I know myself, and I know that I'm a better person if I'm working as well. Now, the whole coronavirus shutdown has really amplified that, and I think really intensified that question and thought process. So still for us here in North Carolina, well, in the particular area I'm in, the schools are still closed, everything's virtual. And so my daughter is just turned 9, so she can sit and do some work on her own to a certain degree, but boy, oh boy, you know. So we've had to be quite creative about managing that, and also getting a nice environment for her where she can actually see some other children. So then that puts stresses on work, and I think parents are particularly feeling that. I'm sure across the world, but that's just the way it is, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I find a little bit difficult sometimes, like this balance between, as you said, like you feel the pressure of you need to be the best at everything, and kind of find a little bit difficult to say no because you have a kid. And then in my mind, it's like having a kid is not a good enough an excuse to say no to an emergency, because why will you? But then obviously you go home and then you don't see your kid, and it's like, what the hell I'm doing? Why I'm seeing this emergency that someone else could see, and then I'm not. It's just a little bit of I don't know.
yeah, there'll always be a tension there.
Yeah.
I mean, there will always be a tension there. To a certain extent, like I'm fortunate in having my child later, because I can actually pass that off. Like, we have an excellent team of residents, and as I've supervised residents for a long time, I'm better at judging when I need to be in there, when I can step away and they're okay, and how to manage that situation. But yeah, that saying no to some extra duty that's going to then take up time, that should be family time, that's a skill you have to learn, and it's not one that I've learned very well.
And do you feel a little bit like this difference between, because I think that obviously the majority of the vets now, we are women, and it is the big majority, although I was going to say, oh, why you haven't been the president of the ACVN is because you have been the president of the ACVIM, because you are an ACVIM diplomat. But do you feel a little bit still, although we are many more women, that there is still very kind of male specialty, particularly neurology?
Yeah, you raised that before, and I think probably if you looked across the world, that's true. I don't feel that in any way, shape, or form in the US, or even I think going to ACVN meetings. No, that doesn't really feel like that's the case anymore. I think it was. But I think that gradually, well, there are a lot of, as you say, female veterinarians, and there are many neurologists who are women. And gradually, I think what you're talking about, maybe a little bit, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, is those kind of leadership roles, like, being president of ACVN, etc. And that's gradually changing. I think that's gradually changing. But, do we as women think more like, if you are going to do something like that, it's basically a volunteer position, right? The time is going to come out of your own time. And so would we think about weighing that up against our family duties differently to a man? Maybe. I'd hate to generalize, though. The world has changed a lot. Would I have wanted to do the ACVIM neurology presidency with a brand new baby? No, not at all. No, that would have been incredibly difficult. So I would have probably put it off. Yeah. Happened, I did it before I had it. But it would have factored in. And, here's something that I've thought about a lot recently. As veterinary medicine has evolved, like, to me, I went into veterinary medicine very much as a vocation. And I think many women do, but I went into it as a vocation, and as like my primary role is to help the animals under my care do as well as possible. And so, because I'm kind of old at this point, I definitely sometimes feel like a bit of a dinosaur when we come to the current time, when we're talking about work-life balance and, setting your boundaries and really trying to balance up, like, your personal life, your family life against that animal that's under your care, right? And so if you're very good about thinking about this, if you're very careful at planning, and if you're very clear about your boundaries, you can arrange things such that you never get that tension, right? You've arranged it well enough that you never put yourself in that situation where you're like, should I be home with my daughter looking at her? Or, oh my goodness, this animal needs an MRI now, and I'm the person who has to do it. So, because for me, then that would be, okay, here's my vocation, and I know my husband's looking after my daughter, so I will look after that animal. But and so I sometimes feel that tension and feel like I'm the kind of dinosaur that's sitting on the wrong side of that, but gradually realizing that, I mean, you often have to make choices about things, but if you think carefully about things and you plan carefully, you can perhaps not put yourself in that situation. So you've got to think about the expectations of yourself. And as you say, you've got to think very carefully about what you agree to, and you've got to think about what that will mean, 6 months down the line. And again, I am incredibly bad at that. So I should not be suggesting that I can do that in any way. But that's the point that I've come to realize, is perhaps you don't have to put yourself in the situation that you are truly in a choice that breaks your heart, Yeah. You can really plan and try to avoid that. And again, I'm in a work environment where if, you are your own worst enemy, if you are careful about it and you plan, you can potentially avoid that somewhat. Does that make sense?
No, completely. And I was also thinking the other day a little bit about this. For example, when you're thinking about a new resident or a new intern, and then we all think, we want someone that is obviously hardworking, that they're not gonna say, oh no, today I need to go home. That if they need to stay, they need to stay, and they're gonna be studying and this and that and that, and because obviously that's how we did the residency, and that's how we all been raised, and you need to spend all your life in the hospital, particularly when you're a resident, and as you said, it's a vocation, you're a vet, you're there to save animals. But then there is also a life. Why we can all have a job where we can have both, where we can have a very nice, successful job, as you said, that you're not putting that choice where you need to decide, do I need to save this animal or do I need to go and see my family? And that is obviously society. I mean, it's not that simple sometimes because we are our worst enemy. We want to prove that we are good at everything, that we can do it all.
And we were brought up to be like, you have to be willing to be there and do the hours, as you say. I mean, we were very definitely trained and indoctrinated with that.
And also, I have some friends that they've had neurology diplomas, that they had kids a little bit early on, and they've done very interesting things too. But kind of the first reaction is kind of say, oh, I don't want to be anyone. It's like, it's fine. I just want to be a neurologist. Like that is not good enough, that you don't publish 100 papers and you're not like. And then kind of that just being a neurologist, a specialist, and having 3 kids is just,
That's so ridiculous, isn't it?
I know, but I don't have the feeling that that men have that feeling. I've never heard a guy saying, oh, I just want to be a cardiologist and enjoying my kids. But we do have this tendency a little bit. I don't know. No?
I think that we always have to, as I say, when I worked in general practice, I absolutely loved the time that I did that. And one of my favorite things was when a really sweet little puppy or kitten came into vaccinated. Usually nobody came with, and it was just such a lovely family event, and you're seeing this healthy animal, and there is enormous value in that. There's enormous value to the puppy or kitten, to the family, to the community. And so that whole need to do something better, be someone, I mean, just, you are someone, right? You are someone. And by doing your job and doing it as well as you can, you're someone, and you're contributing. And I personally don't have that feeling like, oh my goodness, I've got to do achieve certain high goals. So
come on, Natasha, you can't say that. You're one of the women that have achieved more in neurology, and you say, oh no, I don't have this thing of, I mean.
But I haven't been like, oh my goodness, I have to do the best or the whatever. It's like the things have just followed and rolled on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to improve how we manage certain diseases, but it's not,
No, I completely understand. And exactly, I think that is the point, that obviously you don't go around there saying, oh my God, look at me, I am the best. But what I'm saying, that I feel sad for some woman that they will say, oh, I'm not as good as Natasha because I haven't published 100 papers or 200 papers. And and that's the thing, that you, things, everyone, like, as you said, maybe we would have had kids when we were much younger, if things will follow differently, and then just things follow their own path, and you don't need to feel that, oh, you are less because your path is different. Exactly what you said about the family.
Right. I mean, I don't have anything to add to that. I would be mortified if people felt like that. You know?
Yeah, and so you didn't need to do like difficult choices between saying, okay, I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna have a family, or I need to choose between this path or the other.
No, personally, I didn't, and I always wanted a family. It just, for a variety of reasons, happened late in life for me. And maybe if that, if things had unfolded differently, I would have been forced into choices that would have been quite different. But no, it's just the way things unfolded.
Yeah. And have you found, because I'm sure that also you are so much more in contact with like human medicine and human neurologists, have you found any difference with human neurologists? Because the times that I've gone to meetings, they are pretty much male dominated. It is.
That's what I was going to say.
Neurosurgery.
Yeah, all the people I collaborate with who are MDs in neurology, they're all men, all of them.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Now, by the same token, I have through my gerontology chair, so I have a program in neuroaging, and through that I've met people who are internists, but also just the most amazing directors of big, impactful centers that are just, helping communities change, really making big contributions. And they've been women, and they're definitely juggling their children and everything else. I can honestly say I don't know any of them well enough to ask them how they've managed it and where they've felt themselves like between a rock and a hard place. I really haven't. I've also collaborated with some engineers and female engineers, and I think that's a very male-dominated world. And the College of Engineering here at NC State is a really world-class college. I mean, it's very competitive, and all of the engineers I've worked with have been pretty amazing in what they can do. And I do remember one woman who I spoke to. She was an assistant professor, and she had 2 young children, and she was very much like, when I've got a big grant, husband takes care of the children, I disappear to get that grant written. And she was in a family situation where that worked fine. They swapped around and it worked fine. But I think in many different lines of career, women can get put in a situation where they can feel torn, really feel torn.
And have you felt at any time that being a woman was somehow affecting, not affecting obviously personally, but that maybe thought that your salary was different because you were a woman, or that you wouldn't ask more money because...
You see, see, I'm me, right? And so I'm like, well, no, I haven't felt that, because like at any point I have always looked at, for example, salaries. Okay, what's the average? All right, that's what I'm asking for, and so again, it may be where I am, where I work. I personally have not encountered that at all. I've never felt at a disadvantage from that point of view. Now, I will say that now, as I say, with the coronavirus, I do think women are taking more of the burden on many different caring levels. And I think women are more likely to say, I've just got to take a time out and step away because the family's suffering. Yeah. So that is the first time really that I've really felt that, is in this coronavirus situation. And, as you know, for me, my father is really aging and he lives here and struggling. And so having that too, that sandwich, that care sandwich they talk about, yeah, that's an uncomfortable place to sit in the middle of. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it is tough. And I think that, as you said, all the teaching that goes into homeschooling is very tough. And if it's tough for you that you have a PhD.
I'm really bad at homeschooling. That's what I've discovered. Really, really, really bad at it.
Yeah, no, it is very difficult, and it's also the uncertainty of what is going to happen, and also how all this is going to affect to everyone, no? How they're going to remember things, and if you're going to remember, and I mean, your daughter obviously going to remember everything.
Yeah, and the social side of it, I think it's such an important time for them socially, and to be taken out of it like they were for so long. I mean, I think most places around the world there are ways to get around there, play dates outside, all kinds of things like that. But we had to learn a whole new language, a whole new way of socializing and everything.
Yeah, that's something that also, for example, I mean, I haven't been living in Spain for many years, but also speaking with some friends, and I want to also know what is your opinion on this. But for example, I know that in South America, there's also a very big support of the family, not just having a kid or not having a kid, like a little bit what you have with your dad, like you just have your family around, and with brothers, sisters, uncles, or whoever, everyone is helping each other. And you didn't have that when you went to the States. So at some point you got your father there, so then you could care.
Oh, so he lived here already. Yeah. So, that's certainly something that's a bit more, I think. I mean, you must know, you don't live at home, but when you travel and you end up settling somewhere completely different, you lose that family support. I have the support on my husband's side. There are plenty of them around, but you definitely lose that. And I mean, the other thing is, I look at society, I mean, I have just, I don't know, I have puzzled over it. I've puzzled over not being better prepared for looking after aging parents. I have, I've been upset by it, and I have, and maybe this is being a woman, right? So I don't want to be that person who can't take the whole family into the home and look after them. But of course, if you're working full time, then that equation just becomes disastrous. And that has been really a source of, just a lot of sadness for me, honestly. And then I look at society at large, and I'm like, well, our society here, both people work all the time. And that's how things happen. That's how things work here. But that leaves no room for those care roles. I mean, there's just no space for it if you're at work for multiple hours a day. And so it feels to me like I'm failing on that front, because I can't be there and be that caregiver as well. But then I look at these role that we so carefully strived for, where we had a career and we could work and we could be productive and we could contribute on that work front, it does not leave space for that other, so important care side. It doesn't leave space for it.
Because there is also, as you were saying, is also the mental burden, and what they always talk about women and the mental burden is not just that. And I read something recently, and usually I'm more like a vision person. I don't read all these blog things, but there was something about a woman being, so you're a manager at work, but you're also a manager at home. And it's true that it's not just that you do things, it's that you tell people to do things and you organize. And as you said, you're all the time thinking, oh, now I need to call the care home because I need to do this, and then I need to book the doctor appointment for this, and then I need to buy this medication. This continuous working all the time.
Yeah, you are always doing that. And just silly things that make me laugh, actually, whenever they happen, is that, I've become that person that both husband and daughter will say, where's my whatever? And I'll know exactly where it is. And I'll be like, why do you not know? And then I realize it's because I've gone around clearing everything up, right? I've been putting it everywhere. And it's like you should just leave it where it was, and then they would know where it is.
But then this it would be so interesting to have also the vision of people working and living in North Europe, in Scandinavia, and this type of countries where there is a much better kind of work-life balance, and then it's not well seen to stay late at home, and then you need to spend time with your family or with whatever you want to do. Because also recently was a very interesting conversation with an old colleague that I used to work in Surrey many years ago. And before we had kids, and then we were always like, these people that they leave at 5 o'clock because they have kids. And then here we are, we stay till late, and and then, this excuse. And then he was telling me, okay, so now that you have kids, what do you think about it? Has your mind changed? Do you think that is different? I said, no, I think that you should be able to also leave at 5 if you want to go to the swimming pool. If it doesn't matter, like if you want to stay with your girlfriend, like my time is not more valuable because I have a kid than yours. But it's true that maybe your motivation to leave on time is a little bit different than someone that needs to pick up a kid from school because they close the door. So you just kind of put a little bit more motivation, but it is the same value to me. Doesn't matter. Why do you want to go home? You want to go home after work. Like you don't need to stay. But sometimes our worst enemies too.
I agree. I mean, the kids force those boundaries, right? They force you to put those boundaries where you might not. And I don't know if you're like me, but I absolutely love my job, right?
Yeah.
Happy place. So, yeah.
No. And I'm saying that at the same time that I am complaining that I'm leaving late, then my day off I'm working, and so it is a little bit what we do.
But I know worldwide it varies greatly, but here you certainly can, as a specialist, as a neurologist, you can really design, or as a vet in general. There are so many women, of course, in veterinary medicine, and they do such a good job now. So many practices of having people work very flexible schedules, job sharing, doing all kinds of things that allow people to choose to have more time at home with the family and yet still have a career. And that's kind of where we're evolving to. And then that would also give the space for those caring roles. I just feel like I sat in the place where we hadn't quite evolved to that yet, but we are absolutely evolving to that. And we need to be careful not to be our own worst enemies.
Yeah, no, I think so, because is that, and obviously different countries are at different levels. Like we want to prove that we can do it. We want to prove that we can be the boss and we can do the top. And I think that we all think that we need to do more than what a man will do, and saying, no, I need to, because a boss male won't say, I need to pick up my kids from school. Now, I guess that I'm hoping that in certain countries it's starting. You do see in London here, you do see more and more men doing this.
Yeah.
But in a lot of other countries, you won't. So then as a woman, you feel that you cannot do that, because if you do that, then you're going to be seen like, oh, you're not motivated enough. And it's just silly.
Right. I mean, I think these things keep on evolving. I really do. But there's no doubt that as I kind of came up through the system, I was very much trained to think like, well, women can have a job and a career, but not to let go. But women will also have the perfect house and do all the cooking and look after all the children and do all of those things as well. It's like, good Lord, how foolish. Like, why isn't it dropping one, balancing them, you know? And so it evolves.
There is Jasmine from Singapore that she's asking if we think that it's hard to find a workplace in neurology that has a good support for women with maternity leave days off. I think that there is more places, as Natasha is saying. I think that there is more places that, particularly in a specialty, I think that one of the things also to being a specialist is that you do have a little bit more choice and saying, and I know a lot of friends that they are working part-time. So then to have a little bit of better balance. I know that maternity leave in the States, depending which, in private practice, sometimes can be a little bit tricky.
You know what? That's like one of my favorite things that I would look at when I was on my maternity leave was the reactions of people. Okay. So I've been here forever. I had earned a lot of time and I could take the full 3 months. Okay. And so people, all my European family and friends would say, how much time are you taking off? And I would go 3 months. And they'd go, oh, that's terrible, because it was so short. And then people here in the US would say, how much time are you taking off? And I'd say 3 months. They'd go, oh, that's so long. You know, it was like either way, people were horrified with the amount of maternity leave. Yeah, because it's not unusual here that people will take 4 weeks, 6 weeks. That's hard. Like, that's hard emotionally, that's hard physiologically, like that's hard on every level. But I would say, I mean, it's just got to vary dramatically across the world, hasn't it? From the American, like 4 to 6 to maybe 12 weeks to Scandinavia, a year. I mean, more. I don't know. You can correct me. England, depending where you are, you can really have a long maternity leave. But yes, I think if you are specialized, you probably have more options. But even veterinary medicine here is absolutely, as it's become a female career, I think it has absolutely lent itself to that flexibility. Yeah,
we have one of the internal medicine resident. She was this woman. Oh my God, she was crazy. So she was originally from Japan. She had 3 kids, Natasha, 3 kids. And she had the 3rd kid just before sitting her general, which she passed. She had the kid, went back to the residency like 2 weeks later, and then she passed her certifying. So at the end of the residency with 3 kids.
Yeah, I just don't know how that's actually possible. I really don't. I will say that we had a male resident who had 2 very, very young children coming into his residency with some enormous needs associated with it. And I would look at him as well. I mean, obviously his wife was an unbelievable support, but she was a teacher as well. So it's like, good Lord, how did you do it? I don't know. How did you even get quiet time to study?
Yeah.
It's impressive. It's impressive.
Yeah, I think that the willpower is there, but I mean, the brain. So Anna Taura is asking, Anna asked about a PhD, if it's essential for your career to be able to perform high standard research studies.
Oh, that's a great question. The truth is, I don't think it is essential. I mean, what I would say about a PhD is that if you want to do particularly benchtop research. But if you really want to have a research program, doing a PhD is like doing a residency to be a neurologist. So can you be a neurologist without doing a residency? Yeah. Can you be a researcher without doing a PhD? Yes. So it depends, I think, how much importance you're going to put on it and what type of research you're going to do. And what you see more and more, and I absolutely love this evolution, is people following a bit more in the tracks of human medicine here in the US, where people will have done their medical training and internship and maybe a residency and then a fellowship. And, they have these specialty within specialty within specialty. And then for their research, they do a postgraduate research training fellowship. So they don't necessarily spend 3 to 5 or 6 years going through that whole formal process of a PhD, but they learn absolutely critical research techniques and processes through a research fellowship. And I think that that's a really good option. And there are a lot of people do that very, very successfully. So I don't think it's critical. I think for me, it was a really important part of the process. Even though I was very reluctant about doing one in the first place, for me, it was the right thing to do.
But I think that you hit the nail there too, because again, my concept also in the States, I see that that idea of like you do a PhD because you want to learn how to do research, which, for example, in Spain, when I was going to university, basically you were doing a PhD, so you stay as a professor in university, but not doing much with it. There was not that idea of like exactly what you said. The PhD is to train you to do research, like the residency.
Okay. And, to not be on any illusions on it, if you want to be a successful basic scientist here in America, most fields, you're going to do a PhD, you're going to do a postdoc, 2 postdocs, maybe even 3 postdocs before you even manage to get to that place where you get a lab of your own. So, yeah.
Okay, so Carly is asking, she's from Colorado State, working in a DVM PhD. Do you think that as an amazing woman in neurology, you have had to work harder for the opportunities at university or in clinics? Many of the amazing women I know have really had to sacrifice and fight for their success in academia. Do you feel like that?
As a what woman?
As an amazing woman, neurology, successful woman.
No, no, I mean, I don't think I've had to fight harder than any of my colleagues. Okay, in terms of, yes, like my male colleagues, I see them working just as hard and striving just as hard. I don't, I've never felt that I had to fight harder because I'm a woman. I've never felt that personally.
I think that is also your personality. I'm sure a lot of people will see from the outside and will say that you have fight very, very hard. I'm sure.
Oh, I mean, I've worked hard. I'm not sure I've necessarily felt it's been fighting. I've worked hard because I've been passionate about it, enjoyed it and loved it. And, but I'm not sure that.
I have to say that for me, I don't know if it's personality, maybe it's personality and it's not being a woman, but that side of, for example, asking for more money or a little bit imposing myself and saying, no, I think that, this is where I should be. I'm pretty sure that other colleagues, but again, maybe it's not being a woman, maybe it's just personality.
Yeah, it's hard to tease apart, isn't it? Yeah. Although, it's just my personality.
Although they say, it seems that there are some studies that say that, the men are a little bit more assertive. Like, I didn't know that there was such a thing that every year after you finish your work year, you go and ask for more money. I'm like, really? Is that what you do? That's what people do?
I would never do that. And I don't think that all my male colleagues do that. I'm sure they don't. Well, maybe they do. And one question where I saw a difference between men and women in my immediate vicinity was this, okay, so you have this thing in academia, you go up the ranks, you're an assistant professor, an associate professor, then a full professor, and then you hit this dead space. And I was like, great, all right, it didn't really change anything for me. It's fine, work continues. But I found, and I think I'm quite a goal-driven person, but still, I didn't really particularly have any other goals beyond that other than keep on doing what I'm doing. But definitely men I talk to are like, okay, now I need an endowed chair, which I didn't even know that was a thing. Right. And I wasn't looking for that next goal beyond. I was perfectly happy. But again, I don't know if that was male, female, or if that was.
But I think that if we were asking a lot of women, we would have, and I think that we all here listening to this Zoom, we are all very driven and we have achieved a lot of things. But I'm pretty sure that we all have a little bit this feeling of we have work. We haven't fight, we have work, we have just keep doing what we needed to do. And then we have what we don't think that we should receive more and we are worth more. And then there is all this kind of always fighting for, we should get more.
Recognition in whatever form. Yeah.
And I have to say that when I speak with other male colleagues, not particularly neurology, although sometimes I think that there is a little bit more tendency of believing a little bit more in themselves and thinking that they should have the head of the service, or they should have this, or they should have this money, or they should have I
think all the research says that's true. Yeah. I think that so for me personally, I never feel like I've walked into a room or a meeting and started talking and been discounted because I'm a woman.
No.
I may have been discounted because I've spouted rubbish sometimes, and that's fair enough, But I did have a really interesting experience actually recently. So with coronavirus being here, work, we're all wearing masks, and we weren't meeting clients, we were just talking to them on the phone. So. Yeah. I started going in more and more colorful scrubs, and people just could not identify me as a vet. It was quite interesting. And, I don't know that matters. But I think of how do you not know that I'm the clinician who's just walked into the room? It was kind of interesting. And it's because we all identify uniforms and then if you cover your face up as well, nobody knows who you are. Some people were thinking I was a student, and the minute I take my mask off, people know I'm not a student. I'm way too old for that. But, it was kind of nice in some way.
Yeah, but you say that and actually remind me, completely forgot, but I remember when I used to go to all the meetings in France where I did my residency, and I was already a resident, and it was just this kind of general meetings, a little bit like the PSAVA, but like the French version, and we just you go and present, of course. And in all the stands, I will always be treated as a nurse.
Yeah.
The first reaction was, you are a young girl, you must be a nurse. And then it's like, no, actually I'm the resident at the university in Paris. And then things will change because obviously the university in Paris was, they want, and you don't think much about who cares, but
it was interesting. You're recognizing a stereotype or a whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
I did like being mistaken for a student though. That was cool.
Yeah, I'm still hoping that will be good. So my last question, I realized because in all your papers you are NG. So are you Natasha Jean or Natasha?
Natasha Jane, yes.
Jane.
Yeah. Natasha Jane.
Natasha Jane.
And I always put my middle initial because I don't want my initials to be no.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm the Joe, okay? I am not no.
Only Joe, that sounds like
maybe that's why I agree to things I don't try to do.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. Again, I know that this is a very, very precious time, obviously for your personal time and obviously for your working time too. So thank you again for speaking with us. And then I will put this on YouTube, and then I will share with Instagram. And everyone that is on these random times in different countries, they can hear it later on.
Well, thank you so much. It was lovely to talk to you.
Thank you so
good
much.
at this. It's great chatting to you.
Hopefully see you soon in Europe, or hopefully Venice next year.
No way.
Have a nice afternoon.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye, guys. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.